What up, Cucks? It's your boy, the Hater, up in this piece. And I wanted to do a quick video on the importance of long-term storytelling done correctly, right? Nowadays, WWE has done long-term storytelling, but, you know, it's been a little too long-term and not enough storytelling, if you will, right? So, an angle might last 4 to 5 months, and this is a complete waste of not only the WWE's money, which is none of my business, but also of everybody's time, cuckolds. And with that being said, the Hater is here to course correct for these jobbers and to let them know that this is not how things are supposed to go up in this mug, you know what I'm saying? Now, with all that being said, the question becomes, how can we fix this, right? Well, there's many different ways, of course, to fix this, but fundamentally, the way that we want to do it is going to involve a variety of different metrics and a variety of different decisions. First of all, we need more wrestlers on TV any given week. You know, you would think that with these enormous rosters that WWE has, you would have more of these people actually earning money for the company, you know? Now, I know that live events are a thing, and you can have Nakamura, for example, go perform in a live event and earn like $35 or whatever, you know? But the reality is that you need more than that. Nakamura is a guy that for a long time, I'm using him only as an example, right? But he's a guy that for a long time was on TV. He even had a prominent match at WrestleMania at one point, wrestling for the world title, you know, for the most important title in the business, you know? Many people thought he was going to win that match. Luckily, he did not. Now, with all that being said, what do you do with the Nakamuras? Well, you know, the WWE seems to be moving towards this stable direction, right? I think this is actually a great idea and a good way to include as many wrestlers as possible on the show, right? Let's take an example, JD McDonough, right? JD McDonough is obviously a jobber. You know, the J in JD stands for Jobber McDonough, you know what I'm saying? JD McDonough is someone that is going to, you know, create problems, I think, for WWE because he's not going to draw any money. But at the very least, he can function as a wrestler. The draw can be done by the Judgment Day, right? He can be the guy that just wrestles, right? As a matter of fact, that's kind of been his role. So you can include people like Carlito and JD McDonough and have one of them wrestle, and both are kind of like factored in, you know? Because they both speak to a greater issue, which is the stable, right? Now you can do the same thing with other wrestlers. As a matter of fact, I would go as far as to say that if a wrestler's not doing anything, throw them in a stable. Do something with them, you know? Maybe take a page out of New Japan's book and have these stables that are like 48 people in one stable. I personally believe that this could pay dividends because it'll allow WWE to get the most out of their stars, right? So let's say you have Nakamura in stable 1 and you have, I don't know, let's think of another jobber that doesn't get any TV time. R-Truth, right? You can have R-Truth being stable B. And you can have Nakamura versus R-Truth, and, you know, they can have like a one-on-one match representing the stables, right? And this could lead to some long-term storytelling. But the idea is that every episode, every opportunity essentially that you have to tell the story, you should tell the story, right? Even if that opportunity is having a throwaway match. Nowadays, there's not enough matches to go along with the storytelling, right? So it's like, it almost feels like the wrestling fans are morons, right? WWE treats them like they're idiots. So a great example would be the CM Punk, Drew McIntyre run. By the way, real quick, during the Bo Dallas match, during the Uncle Howdy match, I should say, on Raw, Michael Cole pointed out that his gauntlet, which is just a glove really, that his gauntlet was made from the ring gear of Bray Wyatt, right? Which is, okay, that's kind of nice, but realistically, let's consider what that means. That just opens him up for Drew McIntyre to steal his gauntlet and go on another storyline based on a stolen accessory. You know what I mean? I don't like that personally, so I don't like how that works. But back to the real story about a stolen accessory. Everything's about a stolen accessory nowadays. A necklace, a gauntlet, a bracelet. What is this, a fucking RPG? You know what I mean? Like, oh, the gauntlet of demons, yeah? But anyways, the reality is that, you know, the Drew McIntyre CM Punk feud could have easily been 2 weeks, right? The only reason why the feud is prolonged is because neither of these assholes wrestles enough, right? And it's not just wrestling with each other, you know? Wrestling in general. They don't wrestle at all, so when you see CM Punk, you can expect it to be a pay-per-view. And that way, they can justify paying this guy God knows how much money only for him to wrestle once a month if we're lucky, right? Now, one of my fans, I forget who it was, but this was a really, really good point. So I wish I did remember because they made a really good point here, as I'm going to steal their point and, put it forward right now. The point that was made by this fan was that why is it that Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, I don't know if you use them as an example, but the point stands irrespective of who we're talking about. Why is it that these people only wrestle each other, right? Like, what kind of logic is that, right? The point that the fan made was basically, like, are CM Punk and Drew McIntyre just traveling around the country to talk shit to each other? You know what I mean? Like, from kayfabe, that makes absolutely no sense, right? It's like WWE is essentially paying them, presumably, right? I don't know what the rules are, but let's say WWE is paying them in order for them to travel around the country. Why are they doing this? Just so that Drew McIntyre can talk shit to CM Punk and vice versa? You know what I mean? Like, WWE would be like, oh, you guys aren't going to wrestle again? So stay home, right? You're not needed here. But that's not what's happening, at least in the context of kayfabe. In my personal opinion, it would make much more sense if on a random episode of Raw, you have CM Punk versus Otis, let's say, right? And you have Drew McIntyre versus, I don't know, Dexter Lumis. Who cares, right? The point is, why is it that these wrestlers can just walk around and all they're expected to do is talk shit about each other and put over the match? Why not remind us that Drew McIntyre is a menace by having him squash Tozawa? I don't care if it's a 3-minute squash match, right? In fact, that's what I'm advocating for. I'm advocating for short segments that remind us how great this person is. At the end of the day, let's say you've never seen Drew McIntyre wrestle, right? Let's just say you're a new fan and you tune in and you keep hearing how these guys are going to wrestle at the pay-per-view. Are you more likely to buy the pay-per-view or to subscribe to Peacock or whatever method they're going to have if you don't know what Drew McIntyre is capable of? Or are you more likely to do this if you see Drew McIntyre beat a bunch of jobbers? Now imagine if on the other side of the coin, you also see CM Punk beat a couple of jobbers, right? Then the question is, oh wow, like these guys are running through the roster, right? As a new fan, I realize that these guys are presented as stars. So it's like, I'd like to see these two stars, these two big deals, wrestle each other to see and establish who the big deal is and who is second, right? This is the format of wrestling. This is the format of sports, right? The entire concept of having a championship, right? In a tournament, let's say. Let's take the Super Bowl, right? The entire point is we have two teams that are kicking ass, right? I know that you could get to the Super Bowl with like a 9-7 record, but you understand what I'm getting at. Generally speaking, it's two good teams that are going to top their conferences during the season. And you expect these guys to go to the Super Bowl. If there's an upset, then you treat it as an upset, and that's what it is, right? But the idea is the vetting process of getting two teams to compete for the championship. The implications of that are, it's not just two teams, it's the two best teams, right? And we are playing this game to determine who the best team is, right? Now imagine if tomorrow the NFL just does preseason rankings and they decide that the two best teams are the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas Chiefs, right? Then they say, oh, well, we're not going to do the season anymore, right? We're just going to have the Super Bowl. We're just going to have the Super Bowl, and we're going to have these two teams play each other in the Super Bowl. Well, that's insufficient, right? People would be like, what? Wait a second. They have to earn their way to the Super Bowl. I have to see them play more than once a year for me to believe that they are credible, right? That's why a lot of people think that the NFL sucks, because they only have like a handful of games. Whereas, for example, NBA has like 82, and baseball has like 197 or whatever the hell it is, right? So it's like, the idea is the more you play, and if you are declared the champion, the more likely I am to believe that you are better than everybody else, right? In the Super Bowl, you can win with a little bit of luck, right? You're not winning the NBA championships with a little bit of luck. You have to be on your game for 82 games and then go through a best of 7 series several times during the playoffs, culminating in the finals. Right? And then there is no doubt that this team is the best team of the year. In other contexts, this just is not the case. And that's a problem, right? The best context for this is wrestling. And UFC as well is kind of similar, right? Where it's like this guy's just the number one contender because like Israel Adesanya, even though he's like 4-4 in his last 8, he's the number one contender because he's Israel Adesanya, right? And people are like, oh, that's kind of lame, right? But in wrestling, it's even worse because you don't even see why Drew McIntyre and CM Punk are wrestling, right? And I know what you're thinking. You might be thinking, well, it's not for the title. It doesn't matter, right? It's for a pay-per-view spot, and the logic is that whoever wins this is going to have a pretty good argument as to them being the number one contender, right? Like, that would be weird if they weren't. So with all that being said, it's like, where do we go from here? Well, the answer is we need to see more wrestlers wrestle to tell the long-term story, right? And fundamentally, we also need to see them wrestle other people, you know? It's as simple as that. So there you have it, Cucks. That's the video for today. The next video is going to be a bit more focused on why people aren't wrestling anymore. All right, see ya, Cucks.